Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, welcome back, Brewer fans. Joining me today is my co-host Vince Servato. This is Craig Miller. How's it going, everybody?
Hey, Craig, how are you? And do we have Scotty or Chad on today?
They might be joining in. Let's try to keep an eye on that waiting room here on this Zoom call. I know that we've had our friend Chad sitting there for the last 90 or so episodes, but we're going to try to be a little bit more cognizant of that. But Scott's one who's running some errands or something like that, so I'm sure he'll join us at some point, but I'm not 100% going to guarantee that.
Well, Craig, I agree, but you know what? I couldn't be more excited to do the show right now because I'm excited for some Brewers baseball. We've had spring training has been in full force now for about 3.5, 4 weeks at this point, and really exciting to see the guys out on the field again, and even seeing a few fans in the stands, socially distanced, and it certainly beats what we experienced in the 2020 season when no one was allowed to actually watch the limited number of games that are played. So anyways, I couldn't be more excited to be talking baseball right now here in the middle of March.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think baseball is going to be more appreciated to be, attend live this year after, being away from it for a year. And I think that the players themselves are really going to appreciate having them back in the stand. So it's a win-win all the way around, and a lot of positivity and hope coming up here for a great and hopefully full 2021 season. So there was kind of some big news. I know on our last podcast, we talked about how most likely the Brewers were done signing free agents. There were some whispers, and we mentioned that in the last podcast, but that the Brewers were interested in Jackie Bradley Jr., who was one of the last remaining kind of top level free agents, kind of still out there. And he ended up signing with the Brewers on a 2-year deal, or it's really like a 1-year deal with a player option. $13 million for 2021 we're going to be paying him, and so he's going to defer some of that money, and then he's got a player option to come back next year for $11 million, which most likely I would assume he'd opt out, but depends on how he does this year, and creates a little bit of logjam in our outfield, but I think it definitely makes our team better. What are your thoughts on the signing and your reaction, Vince?
Yeah, I love it, Craig. I know we talked about this a little bit in our pre-production meeting, but I'm a huge fan of the signing. I think that Bradley is a great player. He's a versatile player in the sense that he plays a Gold Glove caliber defense, and he can still hit. He's not a liability, at least in the offense. He's had some really good offensive seasons with Boston before. He knows how to win. He was a part of the Red Sox outstanding world champion team just a few years ago in 2018. So I think that that's a big plus because you're going to be getting sort of that veteran style leadership in small accounts. He's a really good guy off the field too, which I think translates into leadership in the clubhouse and on the field. And he seems genuinely excited to be in Milwaukee. So, in terms of the financials of the deal, I think it's kind of a win-win for both the Brewers and Bradley. It really reminds me a lot of the contract that we gave Yasmani Grandal coming into the 2019 season, in the sense that the Brewers are really only locked into 1 year, or if it is indeed a 2-year deal, $11 million is a pretty reasonable price to pay for a guy like Bradley, especially considering that a lot of this money has been deferred off the books in the 2021 season. So to me, it's a real win-win. And it does create a little bit of a logjam. I saw some comments today. I don't think it was from our colleague, Tom Wadricord, who said it, but saw some comments today from Avisail Garcia, who had talked about how he was willing to do what he needed to do, even if it was coming off the bench or working in his at-bats in more of a platoon situation in the outfield. But overall, I just like the move. It creates more depth. And I love Lorenzo Cain, but that being said, he is a guy who tends to get a little hobbled by injuries. So obviously I'm hoping that Cain can still play in a ton of games. But, if he can't, we've got a great guy in Bradley who can play center field. Or if he is in the lineup, I think you'll see Bradley slide over to right field. And Yelich, of course, is locked in left field. So it's a really good outfield. And it also goes back to creating that not only depth, but that real defensive emphasis that David Stearns seems to be doing this offseason, where, that up the middle defense right now, if you've got Arcia at short and Colton Wong at second base and Bradley in center field, or Cain for that matter, you've got an incredible defensive grouping right up the middle.
Yeah, That's a great point. I mean, our two biggest signings, and apparently the Brewers front office, aren't necessarily swayed by signing guys where they really have no position to play at the time, um, as you can see the last couple off seasons. But yeah, two Wong and Bradley are hands down our two biggest free agent signings of the off season. I mean, it's strange to me that coming in the year, coming in the off season, I should say that Kane and Hero were two of our probably three best players, including Yelich, of course. And to sign guys that play their positions are kind of strange. But I mean, Bradley to me is a legitimate Gold Glove center fielder, and like you said, Gold Wong, Gold Glove second baseman. So our defense is vastly improved, and we'll just have to find a way where to get him in the lineup. I think Avisal Garcia's playing time and at bats will probably take a hit because of this. However, as we're seeing already, Lorenzo Cain is not necessarily a pitcher of health at his age. He did opt out last year for COVID reasons, but he also is known to have nagging injuries. So the depth is great. I think it really improves the team. And I think Jackie Bradley Jr. is left-handed. Garcia is right-handed. I think that maybe a little bit of a soft platoon maybe there. I would say Jackie Bradley Jr. get the majority of the bats overall, and possibly between the three of those probably have an equal number or kind of even number of bats throughout the year if indeed Kane misses some time, especially here at the beginning of the season, as he's got currently nursing a quad injury. So I think that may have played a factor in the actual signing. I know Bradley was kind of running out of options. Him and his agent Scott Boras, of course, the notorious Scott Boras, were trying to land him a 4-year deal coming in this offseason and end up with settling for a 1-year deal with a player option for a second. So, you got to sometimes shoot for the stars so you at least hit the moon. And I think that here at the landing with the Brewers, I think is a nice, really for the Brewers, I think it's going to end up being just a 1-year deal. So again, this is classic Brewers Stearns front office, signing someone kind of came down in price, so to speak, kind of late in the game, late in the off season, and a bargainish deal. And I think it's going to pay off to make the Brewers a better team.
Yeah, I agree. And, getting back to Lorenzo Cain a little bit, and, I don't blame him for his decision, but I think that, opting out for the 2020 season is just going to take a little time for his body to get back into shape too, and I think that was a consideration in the Bradley signing. And, I think it's just tough to miss an entire season at his age, especially. So we'll see. I'm confident in his talent and ability to bounce back. I just think it's going to take a little while to get back into game shape, and hopefully he's not dealing with these nagging injuries all year. But we could be seeing Lorenzo have to miss a little time now and again, just partially because of his age, partially because he missed last year, and partially just because it's his body type too, and in some ways. So the Bradley signing is great insurance for that. It's great. It's great on its own merits, even if Kane is going to play 150 games. So I think that it's a good signing, and it doesn't really put the Brewers in a financial hole this season at all, and it doesn't really, put us in a financial hole in seasons going forward either. So like I said at the beginning of the show, I think that it's a win-win for both the Brewers and for Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yeah, and I know Avisar Garcia kind of had a off year last year, and I mean it's tough to blame him because of the COVID season or whatever you want to call it, but a lot of guys had down years and really didn't have the normal spring training and setup to get going like a normal year. And so, however, Avisal Garcia is a free agent after this year too, his last year with the Brewers. So I think that this is something that brings in competition. And it looks like it's lit a fire under him, to kind of battle for his playing time and his at bats, and it's especially important for him, financially for the future. He needs to have a good year this year to get paid next year. So you can see already his results in spring training. He's kind of lighting it up in spring training so far. So maybe this will make him better. And there's no way it doesn't make the team better overall. Jackie Bradley Jr. is a phenomenal player. I mean, he's not an all-star level player, but he does have all-star level defense. He's a left-handed bat, which is nice. He's always had somewhat of a low average. His career 230 something hitter, but he's always had a great batting eye. He takes plenty of walks, and so his on-base percentage has always been right up there with really good players. So it's tough to really he's really a better real life fantasy player. I mean, a real life baseball player than kind of like a fantasy player or something like that, because he really, his defense is really phenomenal. And I think he's going to make this club a lot better.
No, he's a highlight reel, center fielder, and he was an all-star one season, I think in 2016. So he does have that in his resume as being an all-star. And to get back to Garcia, Garcia showed up at camp. I think it was 20-some pounds under his weight at the end of just last season. So that tells me that he is coming into camp serious, ready to play, and hopefully we see a kind of a bounce back year from him. I mean, both for his sake and for the Brewers. I think that Garcia is a guy that has the potential to hit over 20 home runs, which would be huge in this lineup, and especially as we miss Ryan Braun, going into the year. So it'd be great if we could make up some of the power that we're going to lose with Braun's departure or retirement, I guess, to Garcia getting some home runs.
And unfortunately, with the DH not coming to the NL this year, this signing almost definitively kind of slammed the door on any type of Ryan Braun reunion, because there really isn't much place to play him. It also we'll have to see how the spring training plays out, but it's going to be hard for me to believe that Dan Vogelbach will make this team coming out of spring training. I mean, he would be strictly a bench bat, and you really want some versatility from your bench, like, I don't know, be able to play at least one position in the field. And Vogelbach, although he has some experience at first base, really is not good there defensively. And Travis Shaw has some experience at first base, so I mean, he'd be a legitimate backup there if Hira absolutely falls on his face or something.
Yeah, that's an interesting battle. Vogelbach I could see making the team only because he does present a legitimate power threat off the bench late in the game. He's also a left-handed bat, and you do have some versatility already with guys like Urias, who will seemingly be on the bench to start the year if Arcia is indeed the starting shortstop and Shaw plays at third base. So I could see that. Robertson's got some versatility as well. So we might have other guys who can kind of make up that versatility piece. So I could see it, but you're right. Vogelbach may be the odd guy out, but we'll see. There are other guys with options that perhaps will be demoted first. So I've noticed in other years that Stearns and Counsell tend to look at ways to keep guys in the fold. So you'll see a lot of shuttling back and forth between, Milwaukee and AAA. And I could see us, maybe starting the year with Vogelbach on the bench, and then there'll be an injury, and then a guy like Robertson gets called up. So who knows? It's going to be an interesting, next 2 weeks as the roster really formalizes itself and some of these tougher decisions are made. And it should also be pointed out too that I know we saw it partially last year, but unlike in other quote unquote normal years like 2019 and before, the Brewers will be able to carry 26 guys this year as opposed to the 25 that they had carried in years previous to 2020. So something to keep in mind as well as we talk about these bench battles.
I was just going to mention that. So great point, Vince. That it's still likely, I think, that we'd carry at least 13 pitchers because, the one thing that's going to be really different in MLB throughout this entire year is there's no pitcher that threw, over like 60 or 80 innings last year in the major leagues. So, so basically, in a normal year, most starting pitchers throw 150 to 200 innings. So, having them go increase their innings, their usage that much, it's going to be kind of tough and taxing on their arms, so to speak. So I think a lot of people will shuttle in several different players in their like number 4 and 5 starting spots, and possibly even think about using 6-man rotations instead of 5, just to limit the number of arms. And especially those teams like the Dodgers, for example, that are almost like guaranteed to make the playoffs. They've got like a deep, starting, like they've literally got 6 to 8 guys that they can throw out there anytime, and they'll probably spread that out throughout the year to kind of keep them fresh for the playoffs, so to speak, some of their lead horses, so to speak. So I don't know. The Brewers would have that luxury, but what I was going to say is, has anyone kind of caught your eye or impressed you in spring training when you've been looking at the box scores or seeing a little bit of the footage down there in sunny Arizona for the Brewers spring training here for the first couple of weeks? Yeah,
definitely. Well, first to your other point, yes, on the starting pitchers, and I think the leader in innings pitched last year was Lance Lynn with 84, which, is crazy. But anyways, yes, Bryce Terang, I think, is definitely impressive. I don't think that he's going to make the team, but I think that he's really stood out, and perhaps he's developing some of that power that we've been talking about for a couple of years as being, kind of the big hole in his game. He's a great defender. He's a guy who can make contact with the ball. He can swing, but he didn't have much power, and he is showing some flashes of that this spring. So maybe he's found something, or the Brewers have been working with him, or he's just beefed up and kind of matured into his body. So I would say Terang, and then the other guy is our number 1 draft pick last year, Garrett Mitchell. I think that he's been outstanding this spring and really been impressive. So again, 2 guys that are not going to make the team right out of the gate at least, but really promising to see some of the Brewers top prospects who are performing well against big league competition in spring training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we mentioned on our last podcast, but another young arm that really impressed me in his couple of innings of work is Aaron Ashby. He's got an unbelievable curveball, and he's striking guys out left or right. And you're right about Garrett Mitchell. He definitely looks like he'll belong in the majors one day. So that was a great pick for the Brewers last year in the first round of the draft. I guess a couple of other observations that aren't so positive. I know, and one thing, and this is probably, I've been doing this, I sometimes struggle to pronounce Luis Urias's last name, and of course the Spanish pronunciation of it is Urias. So he's really struggled. I mean, now he's also come up with an injury. And on top of that, the other half of that trade from last year, Eric Lauer has looked absolutely atrocious so far in the spring.
Yeah.
Again, such a limited number of innings or whatnot, but these guys really need to step up in order for us not to really look like we got fleeced in that trade, because I mean, the Padres turn that trade into their starting leadoff. I mean, they're a contending team this year, and they've got Trent Grisham as their leadoff hitter with power and speed and on-base skills, and then they basically flipped Zach Davies and turned that into Yu Darvish. Obviously, they had to give up a little bit more, but basically, it looks like they're definitely heavily favored on fleecing us in that trade. But I still hold out plenty of hope, especially for Urias to come through and become an everyday player for the Brewers at shortstop or third base starting this year. So I hope he can stay healthy and get the bat on track, because we really need some contributions from him. And like you said, with the need of starting pitching depth at the major league level this year, I think Eric Lauer will get some innings, and we're going to need him to throw some good innings for this year and solidify himself as a major leaguer. And so far, I don't think he's really done that.
No, I agree. And one other guy in that trade was Eric Yardley. And I think that Yardley really proved himself, to me at least, coming out of the bullpen last year. I thought that he looked outstanding. So, I don't know what his spring numbers look like, quite frankly, because the interns dropped the ball, and I have not seen his spring training numbers. And I don't put a ton of stock into spring numbers either, because you've always got pitchers that are working on stuff, and, it's just kind of a weird time. So, but I do like Yardley quite a bit. I don't think he's going to be like the make or break guy that wins or loses the trade for us necessarily, but in 24 games last year, he threw for a 1.54 ERA, and I just think that even though it was only 23 or a little over 23 innings pitched, that's a good sign of what we can expect from Yardley going forward. So I think that he's kind of an understated piece of that trade, and I think that he's going to pay dividends for the Brewers this year coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah, very well could be. Like you said, a great year last year. I'm a little skeptical. Like, he's already over 30 as a reliever, and really hasn't had much of a track record of MLB success. But like I said, I think he fits the Brewers well, and especially as a middle reliever, a little bit further away from the back end of the bullpens. But yeah, I think we have a really strong bullpen, one of the best in the league, especially with the top of it with Hader and Williams. So I'm a little bit concerned. Devin Williams also has been not healthy, not in full health this spring or whatever. And I know that we actually lost him for our short playoff series with the Dodgers last year because of an arm issue, and a little bit concerning to me. I really hope that we really need him to step up and perform like he did as a rookie of the year last year for a full season, because that'll give us, not only make us have a great bullpen, but also potentially allow us to consider trading Hader at some point, if not during the season, next off season or whatnot, if that's the route we're going to go. But more than that, I think we focus on making us contenders for this year, because I think the Brewers still have one of the best rosters in the NL Central.
No, I tend to agree, and that back end of the bullpen is so important. When you've got Yardley, when you've got Williams and Hader in your 8th and 9th inning roles, that's a really dynamic 1-2 combo for at least this season, until we would trade Hader. And it really brings back memories of that 2011 team when the Brewers had such a strong back end of the bullpen and won over 90 games when, it was Axford at the peak of his success, and Francisco Rodriguez, a former multi-time All-Star closer at the 8th inning role, and guys like LaTroy Hawkins in the 7th. And it was just like, if a starting pitcher who could go 5 or 6 innings, you knew that he was going to hand it over to a group of guys that could handle it. Takashi Saito. And anyways, it's kind of reminding me of that. If we can really find one more very solid piece in that bullpen and a couple of these guys and kind of that long roll, I think that we're right up there with the best teams in baseball in terms of bullpens, at least. And I'm very excited to see what hopefully Devin Williams can do over the course of a full season. So it'll be really exciting.
And of course, if Freddie Peralta is a member of that bullpen, it makes it just that much stronger. However, as we mentioned in our last podcast, he has been kind of being stretched out, so to speak, and throwing multiple innings. And again, this is probably, for many reasons, it might have been the Brewers' plan all along, but also with the need of more starting pitchers this year than last, for sure. I think that he's a logical choice to fill one of those spots. And he's been absolutely phenomenal this spring.
Yeah.
Actually, just today against the Royals, and 2 2/3 innings pitch, he struck out 7 batters, which is pretty awesome. So, you don't see lines that the bullpen like that too often. But if he could be a starter,
Craig,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Craig, people forget how young Peralta is. And, he was still in the process of developing as a pitcher when he was first called up to Milwaukee, several seasons ago. So when I think about a guy like Peralta, I think of someone who we've watched grow. And as he's developing his talent and he's developing and working on new pitches and adding to that repertoire, that fastball, and that is just, it's unbelievable. And I don't know, when I think about Peralta, I think of him as a starter. I know he can succeed in the bullpen, but I'd love to see what he could do over the course of a full season in the starting rotation.
And he is only 24 as of right now. So again, a lot of 24-year-olds are first making their major league debut, the ones that get drafted out of college and spend a couple years in the minor leagues, and they're first hitting the show. And Freddie's got a number of years of big league experience already, which is really invaluable. So both in the bullpen and as a starter, and if he can put it all together, his upside is just really through the roof. As far as comparing him to some of our other pitchers, obviously, like even Lauer or Hauser, or definitely Lindblom. Those guys have very limited, in my opinion, kind of more back to middle of the rotation type upsides, where I think Freddie, if he puts it all together, could be like a number 2 or possibly borderline ace. And I'm expecting him to kind of take off like Burns did last year. If you guys remember correctly, in 2019, Corbin Burns was absolutely horrible. I think his ERA was over 9 or 8 or something, and would give up home runs left or right or whatever. And he was really just kind of working on his pitch mix at the major league level still, and was really getting burned. But last year his ERA was like 1 point something. So that's probably the biggest 1-year improvement I've seen almost ever. But I'm expecting something pretty awesome out of Freddie this year, and he was awesome out of the bullpen last year as well. So that might be the best role for him, but I think we should give him a shot, definitely in the rotation first.
I do too, just because of his age. And speaking of kind of the trifecta of Burns and Woodruff and Peralta, our anonymous source Tom Carter has said that he thinks that there will be a Brewers pitcher who wins the Cy Young Award sometime in the next 4 seasons.
Oh wow! Well, he likes to go by just TC. That way we won't know. No one will know that we're talking about it.
Why is that? Why do we have to call him TC instead of Tom Carter?
Yeah, and it says don't say anonymous either. He said you can call him TC, but that's not either his first and or last name, because otherwise people would maybe look him up and find out where we're getting this information. He's worried about his job and whatever. Thanks, Tom, for listening in, and also giving.
Yeah, it's not like they would know that he works at the Brewers, because the Brewers don't even print off their media guides anymore. So it's not like they'll see his picture, Tom Carter, in the media guide or something. So whatever. Okay, sorry, Tom.
Yeah, that is sad. No more media guides. I'm not sure how we're gonna get our news. We'll have to scour the internet for it, I guess. It's kind of sad. But anyway, we're gonna have a couple of very special podcasts coming up for you in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you stay tuned. I'm not gonna kind of give them away yet, but definitely stay tuned to our feed. Scott Bartel will be back, and we have some other great men to join us for some interviews. And yeah, definitely looking forward to the season. And at some point in the next month, also, we'll have, of course, our season preview with some predictions. But definitely kind of getting excited about this year. I was kind of, some wind was taken out of our sails when, the Cardinals traded for Nolan Arenado and hardly gave up anything to get him. But I really feel that the Brewers have a better overall pitching staff, and they have made improvements to their offense with Bradley and Wong enough to, I think, be very competitive for the NL Central. And I feel the Cubs have got worse, the Reds have got worse, the Pirates are still like guaranteed last place almost with their current roster, and they even sold off some more of their players even this offseason. So I really think it's going to be kind of a 2-horse race, but we'll get more into our predictions, like I said, this month. But as far as the rest of the NL goes, I think it's going to be very tough to get either wild card spots, and I think that the road to the playoffs, the Brewers definitely goes through the NL Central championship.
Yeah, so. I agree completely. And one thing I wanted to mention before we end our podcast here today is the announcement from the Brewers that the city of Milwaukee has actually approved a 25% in-person fan attendance to start the 2021 season. And I know that the Brewers had put in for 35%. The city came back with 25%, and I'm sure that the Brewers had to prove that they're going to, open things up in a health conscious sort of way, so that fans can go to the games without expecting that they're going to run into situations that they're not comfortable with. But I can speak for myself personally, at least, and say that I'm pretty excited to see that there's going to be fans in the stands for 2021. And yes, 25% capacity is not great, but at the same time, at least it's something. And we can look forward to at some point hopefully getting together for a game sometime after everybody's vaccinated, at least.
Yeah, I think like I said, it'll be just a great feeling to have fans back in the stands. And I really feel that by the end of this season, toward the end of the season, they'll be able to increase that number even more so, and people feel more and more comfortable.
Definitely.
And they do have an advantage over some of the other sports, especially, indoor sports like basketball, where since it's outdoors, there's a little bit less, there's more ventilation, obviously. And for the summer months at Miller Park, I'm sure they'll have the roof open as much as possible. And yeah, I really think that this is gonna work out for the city of Milwaukee and for the Brewers and everyone going forward. And I got to give our owner, Mark Antonaccio, credit here, because I think he really spent more than I even expected to him on free agents this offseason, after really taking one on the chin financially last year, like most other people in baseball. But instead of really drastically reducing our payroll, he's kept it very respectable, and I think it's going to allow us to be contenders again in 2021. So kudos to Mark.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I can't wait to get fully vaccinated and get to some games with you and Chad and Scotty at some point in Milwaukee, hopefully this summer. And my guess to your point is that they are going to expand that 25% to maybe 35% in May. I mean, as a country, I think in the U.S. on Saturday of just this past weekend, there were 2.1 million vaccines administered. So, as these things get out and more people are able to get vaccinated, obviously you can make, different personal decisions at that point once you're vaccinated and able to go out to places. So very excited for you guys and myself to be able to do that and do it safely. So it'll be great. I cannot wait to get to a game, and hopefully we can actually tailgate sometime this summer at the stadium as well. I know that they announced that will not be allowed at least in April, but my guess is we see that change too at some point in May or June. So very, very excited about that.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that you get out there to the new Globe Life Park down there in Texas. And I know the Brewers end spring training with a pair of games there, so I'm hoping you're able to see the Brew Crew in person during those games.
I am too. We're on track. Texas was pretty early on in being able to roll out vaccines, so we were able to at least get our vaccine now. And I think that my personal take on all this is that I would not go until vaccinated. Just it's too many people. But when that kicks in, we're excited to go. So I'm excited to do that. And there's very few restrictions, which can be debated whether that's good or bad. But my hope is that because vaccinations have been really plentiful or at least more plentiful in Texas than they are in other states currently, that, hopefully people make smart decisions and go when they're vaccinated. But that's certainly my position on it, is that, after being vaccinated, I'm really, really excited to get to a baseball game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, fans, thanks for listening in. Again, we apologize for not being able to provide Scotty for you guys all. I know that usually makes the podcast, but he will be back next podcast. I surely hope so. I'll be done running his errands by then, and we'll bring the great man back on, for the podcast. So.
In the meantime, you can interact with them on Twitter, Brew Crew Review 1 on Twitter, or send us an email, brewcrewreviewpodcast with an S at gmail.com. Scott and his interns, I know, check it frequently.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, stay classy, Wisconsin, and let's go Brewers.
Let's go Brewers. Do, 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 do.
All right.
Nice, Craig. That was good. Yeah.